Retro Now.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall, voice of Hera and Rook Cast, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continually unexpected.
Happy Monday. Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we're going to start this week, as we usually do, with a look at some recent Star Wars news. But before we dive into the latest from the galaxy far, far away, Jay can remind everybody where we can be found around the internet.
Sure thing. We are on Facebook and Instagram, conveniently at Podcast Stardust.
All right, the dish is aligned, the signal is boosted to maximum output, the shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So this was a very weird week for Star Wars news. Pull back the curtain a little bit. Normally at the beginning of the week, I start checking news sites so that I can see what's going on and kind of get an idea of what we're going to be talking about. And lately, that's been like a whole lot of nothing. But there's been a story or two trickles in or whatever. And that's the way this week was looking as well, except for when I sat down today, and we're recording this on the 23rd, so 4 days before this episode comes out, there was a lot of stuff that suddenly showed up in the news. And some of it's bigger than others, but we've been hitting quite a dry spell for much in the way of news episodes, and so they tend to be pretty short episodes lately. But we got some interesting things to talk about this week, and we'll lead it off with our biggest story, and that is Ryan Gosling headed to Star Wars? So according to the Hollywood Reporter, he is in discussions to appear in Shawn Levy's Star Wars project that's being written by Jonathan Topper. And just as a reminder, Shawn Levy is the director and producer behind Deadpool and Wolverine. And Jonathan Topper has written movies for Shawn Levy, including This Is Where I Leave You and The Adam Project. We all know Ryan Gosling from, most notably lately, Barbie, but he also starred in The Fall Guy. He's also appeared in other hits such as Blade Runner 2049, La La Land, The Nice Guys, The Big Short, Crazy Stupid Love, and The Notebook, among others. So that would be a big get. Star Wars doesn't usually go that route when it's casting for its movies. What do you think about this, Jay?
Oh, I think it's absolutely fantastic if it happens. I love Ryan Gosling. I have become such a huge fan of his, for a lot of different reasons, but he's a very versatile actor, which, he's definitely got comedy chops but he's got the musical ability, and he's got just the personality is just over the top. You know what I mean? But he seems like he can fit in pretty much everywhere, and he's the current everyman in Hollywood. You know what I mean? For a while, it was people like Chris Pratt you would see everywhere, and even Pedro Pascal, is kind of Hollywood's everyman and everywhere. But I would love to see Ryan Gosling in a Star Wars role for sure. And definitely Shawn Levy can make that work because, as you said, with Deadpool and Wolverine, and he's just got so much experience with actors that kind of are in the same sort of, vein as Ryan Gosling too, when it comes to their versatility and just their overall, just appeal to, I think, a lot of the masses. But yeah, I love it. I love the idea. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. He's an actor with versatility, and I could see him doing a lot of different types of roles if he wanted to. I think a lot of people are having a hard time getting over him as the type that is, that appeared in The Fall Guy and Barbie, right? I mean, those two characters weren't all that different, really in shape, comedic, as you just described, type characters and stuff like that. But you look back on those other roles, Blade Runner 2049, The Nice Guys, Big Short and stuff like that. No, that's not the same character at all. And so he definitely does have that range. I'm all for it. I think, that would be a welcome addition. He, just backing up what you said, he's an actor capable of playing a lot of different type of roles. He could be a Jedi, he could be a smuggler, he could be a scoundrel, he could be, captain of a starship or whatever the case may be. He's got the range to pull off a lot of different things. Some sort of role that we haven't even thought of out there. There's just possibilities there. So that would get people in the seats. I don't, you might say, well, does Star Wars really need a big name actor to get people in seats? Well, it might. I mean, I'm thinking back to Solo, A Star Wars Story. That had a box office problem, right? I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
it was kind of flopped. Despite the fact that we liked it, it didn't bring in the masses the way other Star Wars movies did. So if we're going to stray away from known properties like the saga and those heroes and the Mandalorian and Grogu, you might need a name to attach to your Star Wars movie. And is Gosling the biggest star in the world? No, but he's pretty big right now.
Oh, yeah. He really is. Yeah, and if you're looking to sell tickets across, several different age groups, Gosling's definitely one that appeals to, the masses. So, yeah, that's a great point there for
And
sure.
here's the other thing that I like about this news is that, wow, okay, Shawn Levy's movie apparently has pulled ahead a bunch of other Star Wars movies if we're going so far as to attach somebody to it.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I don't want to get too carried away with that because Daisy Ridley is attached to the new Jedi Order movie, and
Sure.
we have no idea what's going on with that movie right now, other than it's not going to make its original 2026 release date, for December. That Star Wars movie is not off the table, so we're hoping for maybe 2027 or 2028 on that one. But at the same time, James Mangold's movie's been getting a lot of attention recently. So, anyways, we got multiple Star Wars projects that have ongoing buzz associated with them, which is good. But again, having an actor attached to this, that seems like a big step.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and a step in the right direction for sure, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that one. That's a Star Wars movie that makes it across the finish line.
Yes.
Okay, so let's switch to some book and comic news. And the first thing that we have is that the flagship Star Wars title, also known as Star Wars, is returning this May. Of course, that's a comic printed by Marvel. And it will be picking up after Return of the Jedi and feature stories about Han, Luke, and Leia. Charles Soule was writing the last run of Star Wars, which concluded last year. This one will be written by Alex Segura, who has written other Star Wars properties and as a bestseller author as well. And here's the part that I really like. It's got cover art and interior art by Phil Noto on that one.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. And then the summary is it's funny. It's got all caps for certain words. Luke Skywalker must defend the New Republic from a bloodthirsty gang of mercenaries. Han Solo investigates a deadly underworld mystery and saves a surprising ally. Leia Organa must grapple with a new alliance opposed to the goals of the New Republic. So it sounds like we're going to be following multiple threads and not have all of our heroes in the same place at one time.
Yeah. And I think that the capitalization is sort of an homage to the crawl.
Yeah.
As we've pointed out, there's not always, but there's usually capital lettered words throughout the crawls. And so I think it's really cool. But I was seeing a lot of this on various sources over the past several days, and I can tell people are super excited about this, and rightfully so.
So we just had the conclusion of the Battle of Jakku series, that was split up into 3-4 episode story arcs, kind of a maxi series going on there. And that also featured Luke, Han, and Leia. The other thing about this is that I'm eager for more stories of them, and that's great that they're telling them in this time span. We just don't have a lot of those characters that follows Return of the Jedi. And I don't know, just kind of remind you of the Legends era of Star Wars when we're getting the ongoing adventures of Luke, Han, and Leia this way.
I did think of that, and I'm here for it because, it's just so much fun to get all the adventures that we possibly can. And, this is the big three. I mean, this is the anchor of the entire saga, really. And so, to come back to that well, and especially in this particular time frame where you can tell new stories, is I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, me too. We like Legends. We've talked about them from time to time on this podcast as well. And I am eager for this. I think it's also telling that we still don't have stories really expanding Rey, Poe, and Finn's adventures after the
Mm,
saga.
that's true, yeah.
And it's kind of crazy that we don't at this. I mean, I don't want to spend all this time being negative about this, but come on. It's been going on 6 years since the Rise of Skywalker. By the end of this year, 6 years since we've had the conclusion of the Rise of Skywalker. You can't get a movie off the ground, and you're basically putting these characters into cold storage for the most part. The
Mhm,
only stories that we're really getting about them are Kylo Ren stories, from that era. Charles Soule's
mhm.
got a comic coming up talking about what he was up to between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. We've already got a comic that featured our Resistance heroes there, or a book that featured our Resistance heroes there. It's kind of like, you know, they, as in tangent, they went and designed Galaxy's Edge around the sequel trilogy with the thought that that was going to be the big selling point for this generation of Star Wars fans. But you're not doing anything else with those characters at this
Right.
point. They
Yeah,
really kind of need to get on that in this case. As much as, you know, if I'm being honest, I do prefer the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy characters. There's more stories around them. It's not that I dislike the sequel trilogy characters. It's just that their their story hasn't really been allowed to grow and breathe any. It's been stifled now for 6 years. And
right.
it's really time to move on with those. It's either decide you're going to make movies with these characters or further adventures, or move on to something else already.
Yeah, I agree, and because the people that the fans that really, really like and appreciate those characters are definitely gonna be all about it,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, it's at this point, it's like, do something or, like you said, move on. Yeah. It's a nice little
Well,
phrase that we could interpret there, but
sure. I mean, it's like they went out of their way to recreate the High Republic era, which we love. You and I are big fans of that.
absolutely.
We've been talking about a
Mhm.
ton of it here. And then they've been filling in the era between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. But that does stunt storytelling to some degree, where we ultimately know where things are gonna end up in that 26-year gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. So, at what point do you bring the story forward and talk about the next generation of Jedi? I mean, that was what's such a huge part of the Legends that we were just complimenting here. That the ongoing adventures of Luke Skywalker, that's fantastic, and then a next generation of Jedi, and all these Jedi that weren't in a movie. Kyle Katarn, Corran Horn,
Oh, yeah.
Mara Jade, all these characters that came up, and if we're not going to finally move past and come up with a direction for post sequel trilogy, we can't have new Jedi heroes there. We're constantly trying to cram new Jedi into the survivors of Order 66. I love having the Jedi that's fighting the Empire. That's fun to do in Jedi Order, Fallen Order games and Survivor and stuff like that. But I mean, we need to be able to carry. I mean, I'm beating a dead horse, but we need to be able to carry forward with the story. We need to be looking ahead at some point.
Mhm. Mhm. No, I totally agree with you. I think for some fans, there's kind of a comfort food element, if you will, to some of these kinds of stories, and that's why they keep going back to that well. But, ultimately, I'm with you. It may be time to move on.
Well, and I have nothing against getting new Luke and Han stories, but
Mhm.
at some point you oversaturate things. As
Mhm.
much as I like the Star Wars comics, those time periods between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, and then The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi are super saturated with
Oh,
adventure.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to the point you can't really tell any more adventures in book format for those characters there. And that's the other
Right.
thing. It's like, you know, we get the old Legends continuity had tons of novels that focused on Han, Luke, and Leia. And comparatively speaking, we have so few now in the current expanded universe on things.
Yeah, we
And
really
that's
do.
kind of a shame there.
Yeah.
But again, I don't I don't disagree with the decision to create a sequel trilogy that took place this many years afterwards and then tell forward. but why'd you stop? You got to, for
Mhm.
better or for worse, you got to keep moving forward so we can keep expanding the universe there. And, we were just talking last week about how James Mangold was attracted to this Dawn of the Jedi era because it's not bogged down with all this lore. Well,
Right.
so, you know, give us a series that takes place 1,000 years in the future or something. I don't know, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like it's we're filling in all these gaps. As much as I like the era that takes place from Revenge of the Sith through the Return of the Jedi, it's like everything is in. We've got plenty of stories, whether it's Andor or Rebels, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the like that are filling up that area. Let's talk about some of the eras of Star Wars now.
Mhm, mhm. Well, didn't they try to do that at one point? And this we're talking like Legends/expanded universe where it went all the way back to the early Skywalker line. You remember like Cade Skywalker and that whole it was like 1,000 years before, almost New Republic or Old Republic kind of stuff. Do you remember that whole
Cade
series?
Skywalker was post Luke and
Oh,
Mara
that was
Jade.
future. Okay, so that
Yeah,
was, like, way so I was going in the opposite direction, but that's the
yeah.
kinda thing too, as far as, like, getting these different eras, but that was considered when did that come out? What is that, like, 2000s? 20 teens?
Yeah, and that was under Dark Horse, before Dark
Okay.
Horse before Dark Horse lost the license and then I just recently got it back. But yeah, 'cause
Mhm.
I know that because, uh, Force Ghost Luke showed up in that series to talk to Cade.
Ah, okay.
And then at one point, Force Ghost Mara Jade did as well too, and that's before we
Okay.
even knew how Mara Jade died. Spoiler alert. Anyway,
Very sad day.
yeah, yeah, it was. I remember all the consternation about we knew
Oh
someone was gonna die in
gosh.
that book, we just didn't know who, and it turns out it was the woman on the cover. So,
Yeah, can I
uh,
just say I bawled for days after
yeah,
after that. Oh my gosh.
there was no good choice for that one, but anyway,
No.
it was what it was. So, all right, well, I
Very,
didn't mean to
very
get off
sad.
on a rant about the going. I am looking forward to this comic series, but it just occurs to me it's really time to you know get something else out there. Let's keep advancing the story, and it just need to get done. All right, I've said that enough. All right, other comic news. We have the return of a villain that you've probably never heard of, and that would be Aether Prime. You know who that is, Jay?
I do not
I thought it
at
was a
all.
transformer when I heard of it.
It does sound like a transformer.
Yeah, and we watched the
It's
Transformers
Optimus's,
One.
yeah,
Yeah,
cousin,
yeah,
2nd cousin twice removed on his mother's father's uncle's side.
yeah,
Yes.
right. Well, there was that recent animated Transformers movie that came out. Transformers One, I think, is what it was called, and it was kind of the origins of Optimus Prime and Megatron and a few of the others and stuff like that, which is really good, by the way. Go check it out if you have any interest in the Transformers. I think it's on. I want to say Paramount Plus, but anyway. Uh, so the backstory to this is after Return of the Jedi, Kenner was looking for ways to continue to cash in on the Star Wars license and had developed another line of post Return of the Jedi action figures, included of which was this character Aether Prime, which was based on unused concept art for Return of the Jedi. And if you go look at this link that I included in the notes, you can see why it was unused concept art. Or I'm sorry, you can see the relationship to art you might have recognized for Return of the Jedi. It looks like a royal guard with a gold helmet on top
Yeah.
and some shoulder pads and stuff like that. So I can see the influence there. And the point was that this was going to be a new villain for our heroes to fight. And then they just never went forward with that toy line. But in the upcoming Jedi Knight series, which takes place before the Phantom Menace and features a different pair of Jedi every episode, he is coming back as a villain for that. So, what do you
Oh,
think of all this?
wow, talk about going to the well.
Yeah, yeah,
That's big time. But, I mean, if there's things out there that were kind of realized but never used, I suppose, what the heck? You might
yeah.
as well try to get some use out of it.
Sure, sure. I mean, as we know with Lucasfilm, no good idea dies there. They hold on
Right.
to this stuff and the stuff surfaces. And we know for Rebels and Clone Wars and all kinds of series that they've gone back and used concept art and checked out various art that was produced for these movies to find influences and design things. And so I'm fine with that. It's a very interesting character. It looks something like, you know, a more extravagant Sith, I would say, in a
Mhm.
way. I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
that's not the role for this character because we couldn't suddenly have Sith returning in the Phantom Menace and being a surprise if this was one in Jedi Knights,
Right.
but
Right.
still, I get that type of a vibe, a threatening Force user type of some sort.
Yeah, and your description was perfect, when you said it was like a royal guard, but then has this, like, really futuristic gold kind of mask going on.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyways, that series is gonna be debuting on March 5th, so we'll find out more about Aether Prime and what he transforms into at that point.
Yeah.
So,
I like the idea. Why not? Because it was somebody's idea at some point, and, if that was me, I say, "Oh, yeah, that was me back in the '80s. Look, they're bringing it back." I'd be so tickled.
yeah, indeed. Okay, and then the last story we got for this week's news is we've had a few more guests announced for Star Wars Celebration. The first of which is Jar Jar Binks himself, also known as Ahmed Best. Also plays Color and Beck, so that's cool. And then we have John Knoll, visual effects guru that he is going to be attending as well. And you know, Ahmed Best, I'm sure, is going to be on a panel or two, and then he will, especially with Revenge of the Sith hitting an anniversary, I suspect he'll be involved in a panel for that at the very least. And I'm sure he'll be available for photo ops and autographs, which are just about to go on sale. So if you're going to Celebration, make sure you start stocking that site for those. But John Knoll, I suspect, is going to be in a number of panels, probably um, the visual effects of Revenge of the Sith and the like. I don't think he really does any type of photo ops or autograph type things as well. But
Mm.
anyway, he's always a fascinating listen. Have you ever had an opportunity to attend a panel that John Knoll was at?
No, and I always would want to though because I'm so intrigued by the creative journey of how all of these things are put together. I'm a big behind the scenes person, and I didn't realize that he created Photoshop. I
Oh
did
yeah,
not know that that was his baby. That's
oh yeah.
incredible.
Hmm. Yeah, when I went to Celebration Orlando in 2017, I don't think I saw him at a panel at Celebration. However, there was a Star Wars Galactic Nights. Is that what it was called? Yeah, like Star Wars Galactic Nights. I was looking at the poster, hanging it up in my office. Event at Hollywood Studios there, and Vanessa Marshall ended up doing a panel show like 4 times with him and Alan Tudyk
Oh,
um,
wow.
there. I think it was Alan Tudyk. But at any rate, and so John Knoll, he was the one that pitched the idea for Rogue One to Kathleen Kennedy, and so he talked about that and then some of the visual effects work that he had done as well. And so I got to attend that with a few of our friends, Dan Zaire and uh, Corey Club and Jeff McGee as well, who was all there and stuff like that. So that was fun to catch. That was it was a fun little bonus panel at the Hollywood Studios. So, but
Awesome.
fascinating. I know I've heard him at least once or two other times, and I can't remember exactly where. But you know, he is so easy to listen to, and it's fun to listen to him talk about the behind the scenes stuff that he's done for visual effects for Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's like Doug Chang too. I can never
Yeah,
get tired of listening to him, and they're just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Love it.
yeah. Have you ever had an opportunity to meet Ahmed Best?
No, but I would love to. I just think
Yeah.
he would be so much fun. And, he's obviously had a very long journey with the fandom, and he's so all about it now. And, I'm sure he's just going to have a great time in Japan.
Yeah, yeah. This would be a good year for him to come back. He's had a rather warm reception for the past 2 years, and,
Right.
one of the things that they're billing him for is the voice of Darth Jar Jar from Lego
Yeah.
Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, so, uh,
Indeed.
that could be fun as well.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, that's what we've got in this week's Star Wars news. Apologies again for kind of going off on that rant about where we are on Star Wars content, but
No, it's
needed to get that
awesome.
off my chest apparently. So, but thanks to everyone who joined us for this episode and our look at recent Star Wars news. We hope you've enjoyed it. And if you haven't done so already, we'd consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving us a nice rating and review on your podcast of choice, hopefully Apple Podcasts. And then if you want to find our entire back catalog of shows, the best place to do that with everything we've covered is over at retrozap.com. We've got all previous 839 episodes there, as well as pages for all the other shows on the network covering all kinds of fun geek topics. Jay, you gave our social media contacts at the top of the episode. You want to go ahead and repeat those and let everybody know where else they can find us on the internet.
Absolutely. So we are very easy and conveniently located at Podcast Stardust on all of your socials, including Facebook and Instagram. And we also have our YouTube outlet. So we have the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music, which do support ratings and reviews and interactions as well. And then we're also on literally every other podcatcher and streaming service that you can think of, including Spotify, Audible, and the like. And, so if you are on somewhere and you don't find us, please let us know, because Dennis is amazing at making sure that we get onto all of those little nooks and crannies. And if you would like to support us on TeePublic, we do have a shop out there with 7 different show logo designs. And when I say out there, I mean on the internet, of course, not, like a physical shop. So anyone can get to it. And we would love it if you would support us, because every one of those purchases actually does help out the show as well.
Okay, Jay, remind everybody what's going on in the world of cosplay.
Sure. So you can always catch me on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. And I had shared on the last episode that I am being featured in Creative Cosplays magazine, mid-season number 20, which is titled Team Ups. And I'm with a fellow cosplayer, Commander Oppo, and being featured by the photographic works of Dr. Cap Photography. So you can check out my bio on my Instagram to find out how to get your copy if you'd like one of those. But in the meantime, you can always catch me as Ahsoka, Hera, 2 different versions, the Fourth Sister, my original concept Mandalorian, as well as Princess Leia Organa, speaking of, earlier in the episode, and lots of other things coming up too. So I've got a couple of events coming up in the spring, right at the beginning and end of March, and I will keep everybody updated on that. But until then, keep checking things out at j.snipscosplay.
Okay, upcoming on the show on Wednesday, we are doing a look back at Skeleton Crew. And then on Friday, we are doing the next episode of the Clone Wars, which is episode 19 from season 1, which will be a fun kickoff to the Ryloth trilogy from season 1. So make sure you join us for that. But with that, just want to say thanks for listening to episode 840 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.